title of this video is technically not clickbait, though I don't want it to come off as though I hate bodybuilding or think it's inherently evil, because as a matter of fact, I myself am technically a bodybuilder. And to go along with that, one of my co-trainers, Coach Hunter, is also largely a bodybuilder. And furthermore, here at Success, we promote bodybuilding as a part of our mission to normalize health and fitness. But even as somebody who loves many aspects of bodybuilding, it's important to acknowledge the nuances in anything. And with that, it's kind of hard to deny that bodybuilding isn't at least a little bit problematic for the fitness industry. But honestly, this issue has a lot less to do with what bodybuilding actually is, and more to do with, at its purest form, how bodybuilding is presented. So what exactly is bodybuilding in simple terms? Well, it's essentially using diet and exercise to develop the body. And bodybuilding can apply whether being approached as a competitive endeavor or as a lifestyle-related situation. Seems harmless enough, but let's get a little more specific with my 3 reasons. So reason number 3, again, starting with the least severe, we're looking at the training.
People who train purely for hypertrophy seem to have gained this reputation of being small science nerds who neurotically obsess over optimal training. It does seem that bodybuilding training has lost its way.
As stated, the simple definition involves manipulating our training to develop the body. This essentially means that aesthetics are the goal first and foremost. The problem here is that bodybuilding began as much more than it is now, and certainly factored in health and functionality as a part of the aesthetics equation.
I feel like there's not enough people talking about just how messed up this sport really is. And the most ironic part is the contrast between how it began and what it has become.
Instead of the physique being the goal, the physique was a byproduct of impressive fitness feats. More specifically, before bodybuilding was even a thing, it was born out of athletics that existed at the time, such as strength-related endeavors and gymnastics. Eugene Sandow is considered to be the first bodybuilder, and he actually was initially a circus performer. Sandow would go on to hold the first ever bodybuilding show in London, England in 1901. And alongside the physique showcase, the bodybuilders would also perform athletics such as wrestling and fencing. But this athletic showcase alongside the aesthetic showcase would not last long, as the appearance of the body really started to garner the most attention. And though competition would be about physique alone from that point on, a lot of the strength sports influence remained in the training for the majority of the century. And even the most famous bodybuilder of all time, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
the famous comedian Arnold Braunschweiger,
incorporated Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting into his bodybuilding training in the golden era.
This was the most important foundation, and I always feel sorry for any bodybuilder that does not start in a weightlifting club first, because this training, the bent over rowing, the cleaning exercises, the snatching exercise, the squats, all of this kind of the power cleans and all this, that is where you get your strong back and your trapezius and your deltoids and the basic muscles that you need later on if you want to compete in bodybuilding.
Over the years, a lot of the functionality and athleticism behind the training started to diminish in service of specifically finding the most optimal ways to build muscle.
And sometimes I get comments or DMs from people who are like, why are you doing this? Like, what do you mean, why am I doing this? Well, it's not stable. It's not a stable movement. Why aren't you doing a stable movement? Why aren't you doing some kind of lunging machine? But I think that you can create that stability with, drumroll please, your stabilizers, and you can also train those in the meantime. Plus, this is going to have a lot more real world application where it's going to carry over to a lot of other things.
This makes sense given the simple definition of bodybuilding, but it also is starting to lose sight of more of the health side of the fitness equation, as the look became what was valued above all else. To go along with this, more intense cardiovascular training is often discouraged for bodybuilders, as it is not seen as optimal for the muscle building process.
Why are you so out of shape? You have like a 10 pop.
I'm not out of shape. I've been 295, 300 once. I just don't do cardio.
All these points about the training has led bodybuilders to be deemed all show and no go. But things didn't get particularly, for lack of a better term, annoying until the social media boom. With this boom, we gained more ability to share information, for better and for worse. Now, we not only have more debate surrounding the training, leaving new lifters paralyzed by analysis, but we also have bodybuilding at its purest state being marketed as something that must have scientific evidence and literature backing up every little detail?
There's a bunch. I mean, the small sample sizes, I think that's an issue. People over extrapolating untrained lifter studies to those who are trained, and there are a number of issues.
And much of this evidence points to training that is far less intense, hyper-stable, and hyper-isolated as a part of what is most optimal for building muscle.
What's hard is now considered ineffective. What's easy is now considered optimal. Unless I'm isolating every muscular function of my body and removing all stability demands, I'm not optimizing hypertrophy.
As a part of this, there seems to be a new sort of black and white divide between more of the science-based, evidence-based side of things and the experience-based side of things, oftentimes called bro science.
I think there's another camp of people who think that like science is just kind of like a gimmick. So it's like, oh, you do all these like weird exercises I've never heard of, which some people don't like. But the thing is, science tells us a few foundational principles. Most of the studies are done on how hard should you train, how many sets you should do, machine exercises versus free weight exercises, which shows no difference in muscle hypertrophy, by the way.
Fucking hate science-based training or evidence-based training. Do not overcomplicate things.
So if you're really trying to grow, insert any muscle here with conventional deadlifts. There's probably an exercise that gives you as much stimulus for a fraction of fatigue.
As a back builder, the deadlift is going in C tier. I'm not putting...
See, a deadlift is like with a freaking staple, balls to the wall deadlifting. It always made them grow like a weed. And you know, who didn't were the pencil necks that didn't try. Like, they just bullshit, half-ass their way through it. Yeah. If people tried hard with deadlifting, you're gonna get big and strong. It's like freaking, it's common sense. How the freak is science proving if one thing is better than another?
Eric has been reacting to some exercise science takes recently, like Jeff Nippard's series of videos, and Dr. Mike Israetel as well. In this video, this exercise scientist, Dr. Milo Wolf, PhD in sports science, will dismantle the bro science takes of one Rick Del stick. Let's get into it.
And today I want to take the discussion further by taking a look at the two camps that nowadays are fighting over the remains of hypertrophy. Two camps that, in my opinion, perfectly represent what modern lifting has become. On one hand, you have the meatheads that I chose to represent with the figure of Eric Bugenhagen, and on the other, you have the scientists that are going to be championed by Jeff Nippard. My goal being to answer the following question: between scientists and meatheads, who is right?
So to summarize, the training has become a lot more short-sighted and thus does not really benefit health and fitness quite as much as it used to, but it's also become far more confusing in regards to what is apparently considered to be the most optimal. Reason number 2, diet, the image, and the face of fitness. This one seems like 3 points as a part of one larger point, and that's because it is, but they relate far too much for me to want to include them as separate points. In the same way that the training is in service of the looks specifically, so is the diet. This point will occur in varying degrees depending on whether or not somebody's approaching bodybuilding competitively or is more of a lifestyle. But bodybuilder style diets tend to lead to more dramatic fluctuations in body weight and body fat, which again is not particularly healthy. In some cases, bodybuilders would go from overeating and just force feeding food to the point of becoming obese for part of the year.
You hear about the food amounts or the drugs, or you're trying to develop a body. I think guys tend to overeat more, and I think that's the most dangerous thing, honestly.
To dramatically undereating to the point where they've stripped away the majority of their body fat for another part of the year. Again, some approach this point more dramatically than others, but the point still stands. And outside of the dramatic bulking and cutting cycles, we can look specifically at the cutting side of things. A lean physique isn't necessarily a healthy one. It certainly can be, but only to a point, because the closer we get to those single-digit body fat percentage numbers, the more dangerous things become.
Yeah, bodybuilding isn't about how you feel, it's about how you look. And literally, the day of the show or the last week, you're on your deathbed. It's a nightmare. You absolutely feel miserable. I could barely get out of the bathtub. I couldn't hardly shower on my own. I'd sit to shower. I was getting friends to drive me to the gym because I felt like I would get in a car accident. Shoulder checks didn't exist at that point. I had so lack of energy. Once you're at like 5% body fat or less, it's just a complete nightmare.
And this is even more problematic for female bodies. But of course, bodybuilding presents the leanest of physiques. And with social media, we're just seeing more and more of them. And the standards have only gotten crazier in the modern day. In a lot of ways, dangerously lean bodybuilder aesthetics have become the face of fitness, as many quote-unquote fitness influencers use their physique as the main draw. This means that the general population is going to view this as the standard of physical fitness, which is problematic for many reasons, starting again with the fact that performance is at its lowest in these really low body fat ranges. But this has also created unrealistic goals, body image issues, and a couple of words paired together that YouTube apparently hates.
I tried a range of diets, thinking this next one will be superior, as the people promoting them would often claim. But the thing is, there's no one superior diet. The one which works for you is best.
And the number one reason, the drugs. Now, this one was probably pretty obvious, but it's not quite as simple as steroids are bad.
And as for drugs, well, drugs are bad. You shouldn't do drugs.
The use of performance-enhancing drugs has become more widespread ever since the 1960s. And ever since that point, we've manufactured more and more of these substances. And they've, of course, been more and more misused and abused with each passing year. And in recent times, things have gotten even more complicated. As seems to be the trend, social media is a major offender here.
Videos with hashtags associated with steroids were viewed 420 million times in the last 3 years.
You're 17 and you've been thinking about it?
Well, kind of, because obviously because social media and everything, right? I go on TikTok and all I see is jack dudes and everything.
Yeah.
I could probably go on Instagram right now and the first thing I'm gonna see is probably let's see. Jack dude, see, it's right there.
Yeah, first picture is a jack dude.
It's just right there.
As we now have more fitness influencers than ever before. For a long time, it was very common to lie about one's drug use, leading to the phenomenon of the fake natties.
Never taken steroids, I've never done PEDs other than prioritize, execute, and dominate in life. The question has always been, do you take steroids? Do you take PEDs? The answer to that is no. You know, same question, same answer. I didn't touch the stuff, don't touch the stuff, right?
I lied, and I misled a lot of people. Yes, I've done steroids. And yes, I'm on steroids.
This is of course bad because of how it shapes standards and expectations. But in recent times, there seems to be a new complication. We used to have a lack of transparency around PED use, but now people are being a lot more open about it. This might seem good, but it's actually a double-edged sword. Though intentions around this transparency were in many cases positive.
I am not a natural bodybuilder, and I have a major problem with other influencers that are not as transparent about it.
In other cases, they backfire.
Part about being on gear is you can get away with so much shit. You can get away with ego lifting. You can get away with eating like shit, and you'll still make fucking gains. You can get away with being on a deficit and still getting stronger.
What the fuck is wrong with this guy?
The most recent turn of events in the drug conversation is that now many are glamorizing them, and users are just getting younger and younger.
You're making younger, impressionable audiences want to use and abuse steroids. Young people see that and they want to be like that, exactly like that. And so they'll do anything to achieve their dreams, even at the expense of endangering their lives.
Shortcutting the process is now far less taboo, and is even considered to be kind of cool.
He's well on his way to becoming a mass monster in his early 20s, and he's visibly unhealthy. Is this really the shining example we want countless young guys looking up to?
This has shifted standards in a different way, as we used to not really know who was natural and who was not. Now we're seeing natural physiques being dismissed as unimpressive and uncool.
Sam looks 1000% better than this person does. Standing here with his shirt off, posing, looking like a pretty big monster for a 21-year-old kid. You're a fucking grown adult who is tiny and has no physique to speak of.
Jeff's physique versus Sam's physique, that's not really relevant to the point. Jeff is a natural bodybuilder. I believe that he is. He has a very good physique and he is very strong and I think he's intelligent. Sam is enhanced and he's genetically gifted.
The irony being that PED users are essentially using a cheat code to achieve their physique, which I don't personally think is all that cool. With that, it's important to highlight that I don't intend to demonize all PED users, as there are many out there that I have full respect for. But still, it's valuable to highlight that the viewpoint of the masses is being warped by these substances. Performance-enhancing drugs are not specific to bodybuilding, but they're definitely the most rampant in the sport, as you can expect that anybody at a high level in a competitive scene, or even many within the fitness industry itself, are most likely taking something, if not everything. So what the heck is going on, right?
What the hell is even that?
Bodybuilding originally was about seeking maximal physical development. Not just looking your best, but also feeling your best.
When looking at all 3 points, we can break things down to bodybuilding is a staple of fitness, though it is not really about being fit. It's about training, eating, and oftentimes juicing to achieve a certain look above anything else. I can't blanket everyone who participates in bodybuilding related endeavors as an offender here, but this is still very much the state of things. So what is the takeaway here? Believe it or not, it is not my goal to discourage bodybuilding. To reiterate, I myself am a natural bodybuilder. I love art, I love aesthetics, and I love working out. So I will likely continue to compete from time to time. But through it all, it is my goal to stay as fit and healthy as possible. I am not simply a bodybuilder. I also train specifically for strength and specifically for mobility. I want to be able to continue practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu amongst many other fitness activities because there's a lot to love. I also want to be youthful and able-bodied until the day I die. Actually, scratch that. I don't want to die at all.
Scientists believe that the first human being who will live 150 years has already been born. I believe I am that human being.
Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one.